Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily.
My son is missing.
The disappearance of Gabby Petito shines a light on missing persons of color. We retrace the last known steps of Daniel Robinson. And a pretrial hearing gets heated.
You posted something on your personal Facebook account about the case, sir, and you acknowledge that you did it.
I should not have done it. You're correct.
One half of the Doomsday Duo asks that his trial be moved. Plus, sentencing day for a serial killer after a COVID-19 delay.
It is a total of 160 years with 145 years of parole eligibility.
Khalil Wheeler-Weaver's fate sealed. And later, inside the interrogation. Defendant Mark Gooch asked point blank his involvement in the Mennonite murder. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. The widespread coverage of Gabby Petito's disappearance has prompted questions about why other cases of missing people don't get the same level of attention, bringing light to other missing persons. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy is here with one case out of Arizona in which the missing man's father is pleading for help.
Brian, Daniel Robinson is a geologist who's been missing from Buckeye, Arizona since June 23rd, and his father has been looking for him ever since.
Daniel Robinson's disappearance is a mystery his father would like to solve.
My son, Daniel Robinson, is a geologist. He works for Matrix New World, also known as Matrix Southwest Groundwater.
On June 23rd, David Robinson said his son met a man from another company at a job site. According to a Buckeye police report, the man said Daniel was saying things that didn't make sense and drove away. A rancher found Daniel's Jeep 26 days later on July 19th in a ravine.
I was told by the Buckeye Police Department when they came to the scene, they found my son's cell phone inside his vehicle, the keys to his vehicle, also a work computer.
Robinson says Daniel's wallet was inside his pants pocket in his clothing, which you can see on the ground near the SUV. The Buckeye Police Department in Arizona says it has searched 70 square miles for Daniel Robinson since June. Late last month, officers posted photos on Facebook showing a well they searched with no sign of Daniel. David Robinson is skeptical about the search efforts.
They decided to do a search because of the pressure that's been put on by the media.
A Buckeye police spokesperson released a statement from the police chief that says, "We are committed to finding Daniel Robinson. Our investigators are working tirelessly to find answers and bring closure to Daniel's loved ones." A spokesperson telling me there is no evidence of foul play.
Hello, and good morning.
The attention Gabby Petito's case received prompted her parents to ask the media to focus on other cases involving missing people. Former New York City police detective Kirk Burkhalter.
If there's any possible positive outcome that can come from all this tragedy, it would be that law enforcement would take a look at how they investigate missing persons cases involving adults, young adults.
Meanwhile, David Robinson hopes the attention on Daniel's case will bring him home.
Daniel's loved by his family. He's loved by his friends. He has a way of bringing people together.
Now, Daniel's father has relocated from South Carolina to Arizona to search for him. He also has a private investigator working on the case. And it's important to mention that while that vehicle was crashed, there wasn't any blood found in the vehicle that would suggest somebody had been injured. Brian?
Thanks, Anjanette. An update on a story we brought you earlier this week, officials in Florida confirm the remains found over the weekend are that of missing 19-year-old Mia Marcano. Like Robinson, Marcano's case received national attention after people noted the lack of reporting for missing persons of color in the media. Marcano was last seen on September 24th at the apartment complex in Orlando where she lived and worked. The prime suspect, Armando Manuel Caballero, was found dead by apparent suicide 3 days after Marcano went missing. Caballero was a maintenance worker who lived in Marcano's building and had reportedly shown romantic interest in her. She refused him several times. According to cell phone records, Caballero was in Marcano's apartment the night of her disappearance. Right now, the cause of her death is still unknown. Meanwhile, new information comes to light as the manhunt for fugitive Laundrie stretches into another day. After weeks of misinformation, Laundrie's family now says the 23-year-old left his Florida family home a day earlier than was originally reported. That means Brian Laundrie has been missing since Monday, September 13th, just 2 days after Gabby Petito was reported missing. Laundrie's family say he left their home without a cell phone or wallet. It's been more than 3 weeks without any confirmed sightings of him. Still, dozens of tips have reached North Carolina law enforcement as hikers report seeing Laundrie along the Appalachian Trail. This week, Petito's family appeared on Dr. Phil, calling for Brian Laundrie to turn himself in.
We want to know the truth. Because if you truly loved her, you should turn yourself in.
You're only making it worse. For us, and for himself, and for his family. Let us have some closure. Let us come to an end to this tragic period and just move on and be able to remember Gabby for all the wonderful memories we had with her.
Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Mike Korovanix and Terry Austin. Mike, you helped build investigations as a former prosecutor and dismantle them on CRUZ as a defense attorney. How is the search of Brian Laundrie going in your eyes?
Well, it appears this is a very difficult search. It's very unusual because we're so used to seeing people be caught in cities and things of that nature where you really can't walk without a video camera tracking you. This is different. He's out in the wilderness, and I think it's going as best they can, but I really have a feeling that there may be some issues in this case of whether or not he's still alive because of what we just heard in the previous other missing person who the suspect they were looking for committed suicide, it appeared.
Yeah, it seems to be quite some time, but the family of Laundrie has said he does have some minor survivalist skills. We'll see how that plays out. Terry, with the nation's attention on the issue of missing persons, what do you think can be done to have less of these stories?
Brian, we need to pay attention, and we all need to pay attention to these missing persons stories. It's really horrible and tragic, but they need to be investigated. And the media needs to pay more attention to all of these stories. The authorities obviously need to investigate each case seriously, because only when we solve these cases will we be able to determine what the causation is and what the circumstances were. And if we can do that, then we can avoid some of these cases. The FBI statistics say that women and people of color are affected more with these missing cases because they are less investigated, and it turns out that they classify them as runaways. So we need to fix that.
The hope is that by bringing attention to all of these missing persons, it creates more eyes and ears on the ground to help find these people and those accused. And Jeanette, back to Daniel Robinson. There was some information police have about him being interested in a woman before he went missing, right?
Right, that's right, Brian. In the couple of weeks before he went missing, he had met a woman named Caitlin, and it appears he became very fond of her. There's a police report that the Buckeye Police Department released when I requested it. It's 54 pages long so far, and it details that Daniel was interested in this woman, but she apparently told police she was not interested in him, and the last time they spoke was the day before he disappeared.
All right, interesting update. Thank you very much, Jeanette, as well as Mike and Terry. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, years after a triple murder conviction, serial killer Khalil Wheeler-Weaver is finally sentenced. But first, will the half of the Doomsday cult duo have a change in their trial venue? More on what's in store for Chad Daybell after this.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTube TV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTube TV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTube TV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back. A trial location is still up in the air for half of the so-called Doomsday duo. Chad Daybell appeared in court on Tuesday, where his defense attorneys and the prosecution got heated. Daybell's attorneys argue a fair and impartial jury cannot be found in Fremont County, Idaho. That's where Daybell and his wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, were last arrested last year. The pair face multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit murder and first-degree murder. In September 2019, Vallo's children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallo, went missing. Their bodies were found in June 2020 on Daybell's property. Daybell and Vallo also shared apocalyptic end-of-time beliefs, making way for their nickname as the Doomsday Duo. In Tuesday's hearing, Daybell's attorney pointed out the intense media coverage brought upon the rural community after Daybell's arrest and pointed a finger at the Fremont County Sheriff, saying he showed bias in the case.
Fremont County is a relatively rural county. Would you agree with that?
That's correct.
And you would agree with me that there's been a significant, in fact, a great amount of press coverage as it relates to this case, correct?
There has been.
And you would agree with me that the press coverage in Fremont County alone has been saturated with a variety of photos, videos, stories from East Idaho News and others, correct?
Numerous outlets.
Right. And you would agree in this small rural community with that amount of significant press coverage and a sheriff who's the county sheriff in that, you don't think that you posting things about the Vallo Daybell case has an impact on some of the citizens of Fremont County, Sheriff?
I don't know what impact would be I do not know what impact that would have.
Okay, but you would agree there'd be an impact, right?
There could be.
Okay, and you would agree that it was probably a bad choice to post things about Chad Daybell and Lori Vallo on your Facebook account. You'd agree with that, right?
I do agree with that.
Okay.
Let's bring back criminal defense attorney Mike Korobonics and Terry Austin. Terry, people from Hawaii to Maine have been following this couple's case, partly because they traveled all over the country. Where does the defense think they'll get an impartial jury?
That is a great question, Brian. It doesn't matter if they're in Fremont or Madison or, wherever. It's not going to be a trial by a jury that has not heard about this case. Everyone has heard about this case, partially because they traveled a lot, but also because it involved children who obviously were found dead in the backyard for Chad Daybell. And I think the real issue here is not whether they find a jury who hasn't heard about this case, but whether they find jurors who are going to be impartial. There is a constitutional right to be tried and have it be impartial. So it's a real serious issue, and it's an issue that will be talked about on appeal, I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Mike, how do you think the judge will rule on this issue, and what does that mean for Lori Vallo Daybell's case?
Well, I think the judge is going to rule in favor of the prosecution. I don't think he's going to grant the defense's motion for a change of venue in this matter, because that's really an outdated argument in the day of social media, Facebook, and things of that nature. And when you really get back to the basics, it really is, you're supposed to be tried in your community. With the fact that we have social media, it really doesn't affect your community anymore because they're privy to everything, like the whole world is due to people posting on Instagram and such. I think, however, this case goes is the way the co-defendant's case is going to follow.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to find an impartial jury, but to Terry's points, that's what we're really looking for. Not that you haven't heard about the case, but that you've heard about it and can still be impartial. We'll see how this, and of course, the Lori Vallo Daybell case continues. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, the latest in the Mennonite murder trial, what defendant Mark Gooch had to say during his first police interview. Plus, a convicted serial killer proclaims his innocence moments before a sentence is handed down. How long will Khalil Wheeler-Weaver will spend behind bars? Welcome back. A New Jersey judge rules Khalil Wheeler-Weaver will never again walk free. This years after the serial killer was found on social media by a friend of the victims. The 25-year-old was sentenced on Wednesday. Wheeler-Weaver is convicted of 3 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and multiple other counts, including kidnapping and desecration of human remains. Prosecutors say he used dating apps to lure victims, killing 3 women in 2016 and attempting to kill another who escaped and later testified at his trial. Friends of one victim are credited with tracking down Wheeler-Weaver by finding him on social media. He was eventually caught in a sting operation using a fake social media account. In 2019, Wheeler-Weaver was convicted on all counts after a 2-month-long trial filled with more than 40 witnesses testifying. A victim's mother gave heartfelt testimony at Wednesday's hearing, as Wheeler-Weaver himself again denied all the crimes. After that, a surviving victim denounced his claim of innocence.
2 weeks before her death, she stopped by to say hi, and I watched her cross the street to go to the store. And I had no idea of the reason why I watched her. Now I know. It was because it was the last time that I would see her alive. My last communication with her was via text and us telling each other that we love each other. And within 2 days, she was no longer in the land of the living.
I would like to say I do feel empathy for the victims, and my heart goes out to their families and friends. However, I was not, and I repeat, I was not the person who committed these crimes. The assistant prosecutor has prevented the courts and the families from knowing the truth by omitting highly important evidence from this case.
Him saying that he still didn't do it makes me feel like he has no type of remorse about it at all. Like he hasn't even shedded a tear about anything. So he's not sorry at all about what he did. And I'm over 100% sure it was him. He told me who he was. He revealed himself to me. Plus, I saw him prior to this, so it's not a mistake.
An upcoming episode of I Survived a Serial Killer is set to detail the Khalil Wheeler-Weaver case. You can find the show streaming to Hulu. Turning now to Florida, where jury selection is still underway for the Parkland shooter's battery trial. CRUZ faces battery charges for a November 2018 incident where prosecutors say he attacked a jail guard. This happened months after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting, where CRUZ allegedly shot and killed 14 students and 3 staff members. A trial has not yet been set for the Parkland mass shooting. Jury selection in the battery case was delayed for 1 day due to defense attorney David Wheeler suffering from an extreme medical issue and being hospitalized. Jury selection is scheduled to conclude this week, with the trial beginning on October 18th. In court on Wednesday, CRUZ's defense team argued for their client to have access to coloring utensils so that he can color during jury selection to supposedly ease his anxiety.
My question is, why does he need colored pencils and a drawing paper?
So she's clearly upset. He's visibly upset right now. I'm trying to keep him calm during this trial. And the defense team is not doing this for any nefarious reasons. I'm trying to keep my client calm. He just asked for 2 minutes to himself. I said I will address that with the court in a moment, but I wanted to do this argument first.
As long as he's not coloring with crayons as if he's a child, that's fine. But that's not appropriate, because if he wants to take notes, that's fine. If he wants to sit there, that's fine. If he wants to participate, that's fine. If he wants to be quiet, that's fine. But as far as coloring pictures on a picture book, that does not assist him or you in selecting a fair and impartial jury. It gives an impression that he's a child.
When we come back, an accused murderer's police interrogation. Hear what defendant Mark Gooch told officials when he was questioned about Sasha Krause. Still ahead. Welcome back. We're getting a first-hand look at Mark Gooch's initial police interview before his arrest for the murder of Sasha Krause. 22-year-old Gooch is charged with theft, kidnapping, and first-degree murder of the Mennonite school teacher. He pled not guilty on all charges. Krause was last seen in January 2020. Her body was discovered a month later near Flagstaff, Arizona. An autopsy determined Krause was killed by a gunshot wound to the head and blunt force trauma. Prosecutors say Gooch, who was raised in the Mennonite community, had disdain for the faith. The defense argues Gooch traveled to the Mennonite community to reconnect with the religion. On Tuesday, the jury got the defendant's police interview, where he told officials that he had never seen Sasha Krause, nor did he have anything to do with her murder.
I'm just going to ask you straight. Were you involved with Sasha Krause's homicide? Did you abduct Sasha Krause? Did you know somebody? Did you know anything about her? Did you kill Sasha Krause? So
Mike, I know what you thought about that interrogation, but non-verbal or one-word responses, does that help either side in their argument for not guilty or guilty?
Well, I don't understand why the prosecution would want to put that into evidence since it really doesn't help them. And they have overwhelming text messages. I think it gives the defense an argument as to, regardless of what text messages were saying, you always have that contextual argument to the jury is we don't really know because everybody shorthands text. But this denial in front of the jury, I don't see how it helps the prosecution. And I'm a firm believer, if you're prosecuting a case and evidence doesn't help you, keep it out.
Yeah, it's a good plan. But Terry, how is the prosecution going to argue guilt in this interrogation where Gooch has a right against self-incrimination and responded this way?
You know, I think the prosecution is going to point to the fact that he was extremely controlled. He basically said nothing. And yeah, he has a right against self-incrimination, but I think the jury can infer that the fact he was very controlled, that he said very little, is, you know, he's probably hiding something, and they're going to look at his credibility. So I understand what Mike is saying, and I don't disagree. I do think that it's not going to really help the prosecution, but it's not going to hurt them either. And I think the jury is going to look at Gooch and think he's probably not telling the truth. He's holding something back. It's insinuating that he is guilty. So it could help the prosecution at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't swing the pendulum, but I think if you're already on team guilty, you're going to probably stay there. And if you're on team not guilty, you're probably still there anyways after this interrogation video. But thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.